There's a version of you that needs to die. Not improve. Not evolve. Die. The one that says, I'll do it later. The one that's always tired, always scared, always waiting. The one that talks big and acts small. That version is killing your future. So now it's your turn to kill it. Because no matter how many goals you set, if the weak version of you is still alive, you'll sabotage every single one of them. This video isn't about becoming a little better. It's about burning the bridge back to who you've been. You'll learn exactly how to identify the weak self you've been protecting, cut the habits that keep you soft, break the quiet agreements you made with laziness and fear, and replace all of it with hard evidence that you're building someone dangerous. No fluff, no affirmations, no shortcuts, just truth and the structure to make sure you never go back. If you're ready to bury the version of you that's been wasting your time, hit subscribe. We start now, and we don't look back. You can't kill what you refuse to face. And most people never change, not because they don't want to, but because they've spent years protecting the weakest version of themselves. They defend it, justify it, nurture it, and worst of all, they identify with it. That's the real problem. You don't just have bad habits. You've built a relationship with a version of yourself that's been keeping you average. Let's get clear. The weak version of you is not some abstract idea. It's real. It has a routine. It has a tone of voice. It has a playlist. It has a way of thinking, reacting, hiding, and wasting time. And if you don't name it, you'll never escape it. So who is it? It's the one who wakes up and checks the phone before even opening their eyes. It's the one who says just 5 more minutes and loses the whole morning. It's the one who skips the hard conversation, who avoids the mirror, who disappears when discipline is required. It's the voice in your head that sounds like reason, but is actually fear dressed up as logic. You know the one. You're too tired today. You've been working hard. It's fine. Just this once won't matter. You'll be more consistent next week. That version of you doesn't want success. It wants safety. It doesn't want growth. It wants comfort. And it doesn't care how long it keeps you stuck, as long as you stay familiar. But here's the truth. You can't become powerful while protecting the part of you that's keeping you weak. And right now, whether you admit it or not, you're still defending that version. You feed it with your excuses. You shelter it with your distractions. You keep it alive by lying to yourself about what you're capable of. So today, the work begins by doing what no one wants to do. Call it out. Ruthlessly. You're not lazy. You're undisciplined. You're not lost. You're avoiding clarity. You're not stuck. You're still choosing the path of least resistance. This is not about shame. It's about ownership. Because if you want to kill that version, you need to know exactly how it moves, how it speaks, how it gets you to quit, how it makes failure feel like relief. It whispers things like, "At least you tried. No one will notice. Maybe this isn't for you." But you notice. You always notice. And deep down, you're tired of pretending that version is acceptable. So here's your first assignment. Write it down. Literally. Describe the weak version of yourself. List the habits, the patterns, the words, the moods. Don't romanticize it. Don't justify it. Just get real. This is your target. And you don't fight something this embedded with kindness. You fight it with clarity, consistency, and complete rejection. Because here's the principle. What you tolerate becomes your identity. And what you refuse to confront will control you forever. From this point forward, that version of you is no longer welcome. It doesn't get a seat at the table. It doesn't get the final word. It doesn't decide how your day goes. That version can beg, bargain, and guilt trip you all at once. But you've made a new decision. You're done protecting it. Now you're hunting it. And every time you show up, take action, and stay silent when it screams excuses, you're proving one thing. That version of you is dying. Good. Let it. This isn't self-help. This is self-termination of everything that's been keeping you average. In the next step, we're going to start cutting off its oxygen. Because that weak version of you doesn't survive on willpower. It survives on daily permissions. Let's remove them, one by one. You didn't just fall into old patterns. You agreed to them, not out loud, The weak version of you is not kept alive by major failures. It's kept alive by tiny, daily permissions. Little moments where you choose comfort over commitment, silence over truth, delay over action. That's what keeps you stuck, not lack of potential, but constant negotiations with mediocrity. You say you're done being inconsistent. Then you just skip today. You say you want a new life. Then you scroll through someone else's. You say you're serious this time. Then you break your word to yourself again. And here's the worst part. You've made these behaviors normal. They've become part of your routine. You're not even aware you're doing them because they don't feel like failure. They feel like habits. But those habits are feeding the exact version of you said you wanted to bury. So now it's time to starve that version completely. No more loopholes. No more. It's not a big deal. No more. Just this once. From here on out, every behavior you tolerate becomes a vote to stay the same. And every behavior you eliminate becomes a weapon against the weak self. Let's break it down. Behavior 1. Later. There is no later. There is now, and everything else is an excuse in disguise. Later is how the weak version survives. It delays action just long enough for the urgency to fade. From now on. If it matters, it gets done. If it moves you forward, it happens today. No plan without execution. No vision without action. Behavior 2. Checking out. Distraction is the diet of the weak self. When you can't sit in silence, can't focus for 20 minutes, can't be alone with your thoughts. You're feeding avoidance. And avoidance breeds weakness. Turn the phone off. Shut the tabs. Stop numbing yourself. You don't need more content. You need more clarity. And clarity only comes when the noise stops. Behavior 3. Breaking promises to yourself. Every time you say, I'll do it, and don't, you lose trust in yourself. And that loss builds shame. And shame becomes silence. And silence becomes sabotage. It's not about perfection. It's about becoming someone whose word means something. If you say you'll show up, show up. If you say you'll finish, finish. No one else has to see it. This is how you starve the weak self, by making your actions non-negotiable. Behavior 4. Letting feelings decide. I don't feel like it. Cool. Do it anyway. The strongest version of you doesn't wait for motivation. No. They move on mission. And if you keep waiting to feel ready, you'll spend your life watching people with less talent outwork you, simply because they acted while you hesitated. Your feelings are valid. They just don't lead anymore. Behavior 5. Tolerating environments that keep you small. You can't act strong in a space that's built for weakness. That means unfollow the voices that normalize excuses. Stop texting people who drain your drive. Remove the clutter that confuses your focus. You're not obligated to stay accessible to anything that tempts your old self back into control. You're not being rude. You're being strategic. Every time you act in alignment with your stronger self, you're withholding food from the weak version. And it will fight. It'll whisper. It'll scream. It'll beg you to just relax today. That's your cue. Starve it harder. Because habits don't just disappear, they die of hunger, and silence, and replacement. So ask yourself, which behaviors have I normalized that are actually feeding my weakness? Which excuse has been showing up in disguise? What needs to stop today, no matter how small it feels? You're not trying to improve anymore. You're cutting ties. And this is how you make the cut real. In the next step, we're going to dig even deeper into the unconscious agreements you've made with weakness and show you how to break every single one of them. Let's keep going. You didn't just fall into old patterns. You agreed to them, not out loud, not all at once, but over time, slowly, quietly, you said yes to being less than what you could be. And now, those agreements are running your life. You agreed to avoid discomfort. You agreed to hide when things got hard. You agreed to play small so no one would expect more from you. You agreed to delay things that mattered until one day they didn't matter anymore. That's what weakness does. It doesn't demand. It negotiates. And you've been saying yes for far too long. You've agreed to be the one who starts strong but never finishes. You've agreed to be the one who talks about change more than you live it. You've agreed to show up just enough to look serious, but not enough to actually shift. And the most dangerous part? You called that being realistic. But it wasn't realism. It was retreat. It was surrender. It was you signing a quiet contract with mediocrity just to avoid the weight of becoming more. Let that sink in. Because you can't break what you haven't admitted. And that's what this step is about. Admitting the deal you made with the part of you that's been keeping you average. The part that told you it was safer not to try. The part that said it's better to be unnoticed than to risk being seen and fail. The part that said you'll do it when you're ready, knowing you'd never be. That voice has had power over you not because it was right, but because you agreed with it. Now it's time to tear up the contract. Not with words, with action, with rejection, with absolute refusal to live one more day under terms you never consciously signed. You don't owe anything to the version of you that made those choices. You don't have to stay loyal to your past just because it's familiar. You don't have to carry the weight of patterns you no longer believe in. You can break the agreement right now. You can say, I no longer accept inconsistency as part of who I am. I no longer make peace with self-doubt. I no longer give permission to delay what I know I must face. I no longer answer to the voice that tells me to stay quiet, stay safe, stay stuck. This is where the fracture becomes final. And yes, the weak version of you will try to renegotiate. It'll say, don't be so extreme. It'll say, you've made progress. That's enough. It'll say, you've done more than most. But you're not here to be most. You don't fix weakness. You eliminate it. And that starts now. And that starts by refusing to play by the old rules ever again. You don't fix weakness. You eliminate it. And that starts now. So ask yourself, what agreements have I been living under that no longer reflect who I've decided to become? Where have I been saying yes to a life I secretly resent? And what would change if, starting now, the answer became no? No to delay. No to softness. No to the version of you that negotiates every promise and justifies every retreat. In the next step, you stop talking about change and start proving it. Daily. Deliberately. With evidence the weak version of you can't deny. You say you've changed. Prove it. Not with words. Not with plans. With action. Because the weak version of you doesn't die through intention, it dies through proof. And every day you delay that proof, it gets stronger again. If you want to build a version of yourself that no longer needs convincing, start showing up like it's already true. You don't need more vision. You need receipts. You need mornings that start with action. Work that gets done no matter how you feel. Promises you keep even when it's inconvenient. Structure that holds even when your motivation dies. That's proof. You've spent enough time becoming self-aware. Now it's time to become undeniable. And that starts with what you do when no one's watching. Because this new version of you, the one that doesn't second-guess, doesn't flinch, doesn't shrink. It isn't built in grand moments. It's built in small, daily decisions made with zero emotion and full commitment. When you say, I don't miss, then don't miss. When you say, I'm done negotiating, then don't negotiate. When you say this is the standard, then live like it. Every day, every setting, no matter who's paying attention. That's what makes you dangerous again. Not because you're loud, not because you're aggressive, but because you're unavailable for anything less than what you committed to. No excuses, no loopholes, no soft landings. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need anyone to cheer you on. You just need to do what the old you never could, be consistent without collapsing. Because that's the difference between momentum and relapse. It's not intensity, it's proof. Even when it's boring, even when it's quiet, even when there's no reward in sight. The weak version of you craves validation. The strong version builds regardless. And when you stack those quiet wins day after day, something changes. Not just in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. You stop asking, am I really different now? Because you know. You've got proof. Proof that you don't flinch. Proof that you don't disappear. Proof that when you say you're about it, you are. No more cycles. No more resets. Just evidence. So ask yourself, what did I do today that proves I've changed? What did I face instead of avoid? What did I execute without negotiating? If the answer is nothing, then nothing has changed. And that's on you. But if the answer is real, even if it's small, Then you're becoming someone the weak version of you would never recognize. Keep going. The next step will show you why you can't keep that new self alive in the same environment that raised the old one, and what has to go for good if you're serious about never going back. You can't keep the new you alive in the same space that raised the old one. You've done the work. You've shifted how you think. You've started acting differently. But if you're still waking up in a world that rewards your old patterns, you will eventually go back. Because identity isn't built in isolation. It's reinforced by repetition and by your surroundings. You can't act like someone focused when your phone owns your first hour. You can't move like someone disciplined when your space is chaotic. You can't grow when everyone around you is still playing small and calling it balance. And here's the trap most people fall into. They upgrade themselves, but leave everything else the same. Same desk, same noise, same inputs, same conversations, same expectations. Then they wonder why it doesn't last. It's because their environment is still built for the version of themselves they're trying to bury. If your space still welcomes distraction, you'll find it. If your schedule still rewards comfort, you'll choose it. If your circle still normalizes excuses, you'll lower your standards just to stay accepted. This isn't about being dramatic. It's about being honest. You cannot rise in a system that's designed for who you used to be. That system has to break. Your mornings need to be protected. Your workspace needs to reflect your focus. Your routines need to be built around clarity, not chaos. Your boundaries need to make weak patterns feel unwelcome. Because when the environment changes, everything shifts faster. You no longer have to fight the same battles. You no longer need to resist temptation every 10 minutes. You no longer waste energy negotiating with distractions. The system protects the standard, and the standard protects your identity. But here's the part that cuts. You're still holding on to things that only make sense to your old self. The messages you still read. The apps you still refuse to delete. The clutter you keep telling yourself you'll organize next week. The relationships you maintain just to avoid being alone. They all pull you back into a mindset you swore you'd outgrow. So now the decision is this. Do you want to keep things that feel familiar? Or do you want to build a life that reflects who you've actually become? Because the new version of you isn't just a mindset. It's a system. It's a rhythm. It's a way of moving through your day where the old self doesn't even fit anymore. That's the goal. Not just to improve your habits, but to rebuild your world until the weak version of you has no space left to live in. Not mentally, not physically, not emotionally. So take a look around. Everything in your environment is either reinforcing who you were or reminding you of who you're becoming. Make the hard edits. The next step will hurt even more because you're not just changing what surrounds you. You're going to feel what it means to let go of the identity you used to depend on. And it's going to cost you, but it'll be the best thing you've ever paid for. This part is going to hurt, and that's how you know it's real. Because shedding the soft version of yourself isn't just about cutting habits. It's about letting go of an identity that kept you safe, even if it kept you small. You've lived inside that version for years. You built routines around it. You made decisions based on its fears. You found comfort in its excuses. And now that it's dying, part of you wants to grieve it. That's normal, but you don't stop for the funeral. Because here's what no one tells you. Growth feels like loss at first. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're removing something familiar. And familiarity is addictive, even when it keeps you stuck. You'll miss the feeling of being understood by people you've outgrown. You'll miss the quiet relief of quitting early. You'll miss the softness that came from blaming the world instead of owning your decisions. But missing it doesn't mean you need it. It just means you're human. You're feeling the withdrawal of an identity you lived in for too long. Let it burn. Because what's trying to leave you right now is exactly what's been blocking the version you're building. You can't become sharp if you refuse to cut. You can't become clear if you keep reaching back for fog. You can't become dangerous again if you're still asking for permission to move. This is where most people go back. Not because they weren't capable, but because they didn't expect it to hurt. But you're not going back. You're going through. You're letting the discomfort come, and you're not negotiating with it. You're not softening your goals to make the pain easier. You're not adjusting your standards to protect your feelings. You're not looking for a middle ground between growth and comfort. You're done pretending that both can coexist. They can't. And now you know that. So stop waiting for this process to feel good. Stop waiting for alignment to be easy. Stop expecting transformation to show up without loss. Because what's dying right now is not your strength. It's your attachment to being tolerated, understood, validated, accepted by people who never wanted to see you fully alive. Let it go. Let them go. Let the parts of you that only existed to survive finally disappear. And if it hurts, good. That means you're not numbing at this time. You're awake. You're alert. And you're ready to finish what you started. In the final step, we're not going to celebrate. We're going to cement. Because you didn't come this far to feel different for a few days. You came to anchor this new identity and never go back. Now that you've burned what needed to die, you don't leave empty space. You replace. Because if you don't fill the gap with something stronger, the old version will find a way back in. And this time, it'll disguise itself better. It'll sound more reasonable. It'll look more disciplined. But it'll still be soft. Still average. Still exactly what you just fought to eliminate. So here's what has to happen now. You install new standards, but not goals, not habits. Standards. Standards aren't optional. They don't wait for your mood. They don't ask how you feel. They define how you live regardless. That's the difference between a decision and an identity. The old you used to say, "I'll try to wake up early." The new you says, "I don't sleep through my future." The old you says, "I'll be more consistent." The new you says, "I don't break my word, especially to myself." The old you needed reminders, motivation, external validation. The new you runs on a standard that doesn't need approval. This is where you stop performing discipline and start living it. No explanations, no drama, just action by default. Because this version of you doesn't need to feel inspired to move. This version is hardwired, and it's built through repetition. You don't wait to feel confident. You act like someone who respects themselves. Until confidence becomes your normal. You don't hope to be consistent. You follow through. Until consistency is automatic. You don't wait for peace. You eliminate what causes chaos. Until peace is what's left. This is identity work. You're no longer trying to change your life. You've already changed who you are. Now you protect it with standards that don't bend. You don't explain them. You don't negotiate them. You live by them. And every day you do, you create more distance between the person you used to be and the one who's finally taken over. Now it's your job to keep that distance permanent. Not with motivation, but with systems. Not with hype, but with structure. Not with hope, but with truth. Because the weak version of you isn't gone forever. It's starving, waiting, watching for the moment you slip. Don't give it the opening. Anchor who you've become, every day, in silence, through action, without needing to be seen. If this message wasn't just something you heard, but something you felt. Subscribe now, not for inspiration, but to stay surrounded by what you're building and who you're finally becoming. And if this was the chapter where the old you died, the next video is where the new you becomes untouchable. Watch it now, then go prove it.